Hello, everybody, and good late afternoon. I'm Don Arleth, and you're watching World News here on TVP World. The Trump administration's new national security strategy signals a major shift, pledging support for EU-skeptic patriotic parties and prioritizing a rapid end to the war in Ukraine in order to prevent a broader Russia-Europe confrontation. The document frames these moves as part of a strategy to reshape U.S. engagement with Europe and reduce long-term instability.
The National Security Strategy is an official U.S. document highlighting its global security and foreign policy priorities. The current version codifies President Trump's America First approach and justifies his reversals of decades of U.S. policy towards Europe and the world. The document says that America's post-Cold War strategy of promoting free trade and globalization has fallen short by allowing allies and partners in Europe and Asia to take advantage of American economic and military power. In the section on Europe, the document argues that the continent's falling share of the world economy is less of a problem than what it calls a stark prospect of civilizational erasure that it blames on the European Union. The strategy accuses unnamed European governments of holding unrealistic expectations when it comes to ending the war in Ukraine, arguing without providing evidence that these governments do not enjoy majority support in their own countries. In a reference to the EU-skeptic, anti-mainstream and often pro-Russian parties in Europe, the strategy says America wants them to press on and is optimistic about the growing influence of what it calls patriotic European parties. The strategy also claims that some NATO members will become majority non-European and, in an apparent bow to Moscow, says the alliance's open-door policy should turn into a pledge not to expand further.
The Polish parliament held a secret meeting today, reportedly on the topic of crypto assets and the Russian fingerprints related to them. TVP World asked Andrzej Szejna, an MP from the New Left Party, for comments on the meeting, and former Polish Foreign Minister Adam Rotfeld to speak on the recent American announcement that it would not expand NATO further.
Of course, I cannot disclose all the information we obtained during the statement of Mr. Prime Minister Donald Tusk, but I have to admit that this is very dangerous for Polish security and will take a very serious measures against. I think that we have to review our NATO strategy and we cannot be passive. We have to be prepared against all activities of Russian Federation.
The timing of the statement announcing that the United States would not expand NATO is tied to the talks that took place in Russia between Witkoff and Kushner on one side and Putin and Ushakov on the other. This is apparently the result of an agreement between the American and Russian delegations. The issue of Moldova and other countries that are not part of the alliance is a valid question to raise. However, that question has already been answered by the Americans.
Poland is one of the wonders of the world, U.S. Ambassador to Poland Tom Rose wrote on X on Thursday. The official also stressed the strengthening of Poland as part of the America First doctrine, a policy under the Trump administration favoring the interests of the United States. Poland is a rising global power, a trillion-dollar economy, the strongest army in Europe, the fastest growing country in the region, and the guardian of NATO's eastern flank, the U.S. ambassador emphasized on X. Rose added that U.S. President Donald Trump was the first to recognize these developments and is providing unprecedented support to the country. Ambassador Rose also shared a comment from the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who took over the presidency of the G20 on Monday, saying that Poland will be invited to the G20 summit in Florida next year. The Lithuanian government will declare a state of emergency starting next week, Prime Minister Inga Ruginienė said on Friday. She added that the legal framework and relevant documents are currently being prepared. The decision is related to the incidents of smuggling balloons from Belarus breaching Lithuanian airspace. The Prime Minister said that the state of emergency would facilitate the work of the investigative group already set up to combat the balloons, and would enable certain mechanisms and emergency measures. According to data from the Interior Ministry, this year Lithuania recorded almost 600 cases of violations of its airspace by smuggling balloons, and 197 drone violations, all coming from Belarus. The Prime Minister also said, quote, "If the situation escalates, we don't rule out the possibility of taking more decisive action." Germany's parliament has passed a controversial new military service bill in a move to strengthen national defense amid growing threats from Russia.
The decision marks a major shift in Germany's military policy as a part of Chancellor Friedrich Merz's plan to build Europe's strongest conventional army. From January 2026, all 18-year-olds will receive a questionnaire asking if they want to join the armed forces. Filling the form will be mandatory for men and voluntary for women. The majority of youths do not support the move and are planning strikes in up to 90 cities on Friday across Germany to protest the move. The German army, called the Bundeswehr, currently has around 182,000 troops. The country's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, aims to raise that number by 20,000 over the next year, with a long-term target of 260,000 active troops by the early 2030s, supported by around 200,000 reservists to meet NATO requirements.
Europe's security framework is under severe strain, with the war in Ukraine exposing deep vulnerabilities. At the OSCE's 32 Ministerial Council in Vienna, officials stressed diplomacy and dialogue, saying the organization stands ready to help implement any peace deal in Ukraine and rebuild lasting security architecture.
The security architecture that kept Europe stable for decades has cracked. Nowhere is this clearer than in Ukraine, only a few hundred kilometers from Vienna. The war is an open wound in the heart of our continent. It must end. And thanks to renewed diplomatic efforts led by the United States in recent months, we believe that it will end. And when it does, the OSCE will be ready, if asked, to help support the implementation of any agreement the sides may reach, and to help rebuild a lasting security architecture for all of the OSCE's 1 billion citizens that we serve.
NATO will shift defense planning for Denmark, Sweden, and Finland from its Brøndshum headquarters to Norfolk, Virginia in the United States, starting on December 6th. The move strengthens deterrence in the High North and integrates the Nordic nations under U.S. command.
Responsibility for defense planning for Denmark, Sweden, and Finland will be shifted from NATO's operational headquarters in Brøndshum in the Netherlands to Norfolk in the United States, starting December 6th, as announced by NATO's Supreme Allied Commander for Europe, Aleksus Grynkewicz.
Imperative that we strengthen the Euro-Atlantic area as much as possible and reinforce our posture in the High North. This shift, which integrates the Nordic nations as a whole, including NATO's two newest members, Sweden and Finland, under JFC Norfolk's leadership, it does exactly that.
Finland's president said that this shift will significantly reinforce deterrence and defense in a region that now encompasses the longest border the alliance has with Russia.
What we witnessed today is a milestone in strengthening NATO's deterrence and defense in a demanding security environment. This is a big day for Finland and for our armed forces. We want to strengthen the deterrence and defense with pragmatic proposals. And we're seeing some of the results now. They are concrete steps to enhance the security of Finland and the whole alliance.
In practice, this means that NATO operations in Finland will now be planned and directed from a headquarters in the United States. The change has been long in the making and aligns fully with Finland's own preferences. In addition to Denmark, Sweden, and Finland, the new area of responsibility will include Iceland, Norway, the United Kingdom, and the Atlantic Ocean.
Continuing evolution of NATO, events such as this, mark the power of this military political alliance and identify it as the most important of its kind in the world's history, and one that continues to strengthen in terms of its nations, its capabilities, and its resolve.
The Norfolk Command serves as a strategic bridge between North America and Europe, tasked in part with safeguarding maritime lines of communication. The change was approved by the North Atlantic Council, NATO's top decision-making body, as part of an update to the alliance's deterrence and defense plans.
And with that, we've run out of time here on World News. Thanks for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.